Okay, I think we are live.
Good evening, everyone. Planning Board meeting of March 3rd, 2021. Sarah, do you have up to date on taxes?
Everybody's paid up.
All right, Sarah distributed the minutes. Do we have any comments on the minutes? I'll just call a roll. Dan,
No comments on the minutes.
Lori, you weren't, you were an alternate last meeting, so we'll skip you. Kevin? Kevin, unmute so we can hear you say yes.
Kevin's not here.
Kevin's not here.
Oh,
Kevin's
Kevin.
not here.
Yep.
All right, Kevin is not here. Mike Smith?
No comments.
I'm okay with it. So 3 votes is a quorum, so the minutes are approved. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the order for this evening.
Oh, there's Kevin. Okay.
Kevin, we went through the minutes. Were you okay with the minutes? I mean, we already approved them, but I don't want to leave you out.
Yes, I am okay with them. I'm sorry for being late. I had some technical difficulties.
All right, Sarah, adjust the vote. All right, the order for this evening will be Esterbrook, number 1. Number 2 is 3 Beechwood Road. Number 3 will be 10 Hancock. Number 4 is 4 Camden Court. Number 5 is 75 Hamilton Road. Number 6 will be 14 Castle Road. Number 7 will be 8 West Sunnyside Lane. And number 8 will be 28 Cedar Lawn Road. And obviously they're all in Irvington. All right, we have number 1 present, 2 South Astor Street.
Hello, John
Hi,
Malone,
John.
Artisan Malone Architecture.
Good evening, John.
Hey. So we received, on Astorbeck, we received the Han memorandum. I believe we had 2 items shown, which was the easement agreement needing to be executed and a comment of the ADA requirements being verified at the building department. Ed had, I don't know if you guys want me to just cover those 2 things. Ed had asked me to confirm that the Lula elevator which is a limited use, limited access elevator, is appropriate for an accessible path requirement. So I just got comments back from it today, and it is allowed as an accessible path elevator, and it is controlled by 2 codes. One is an elevator safety code, and the other one is the accessibility code. So we reviewed both of those, and it's doable. We'll have to, confirm that the unit that was specified, meets all the requirements of those 2 codes. One's an elevator safety code, but we believe it's correct.
And there was a question of the some drawings for one of the stairwells.
I think that was addressed. We picked up. We added a foundation plan to clarify there was an issue with 2 foundations and how they coordinated with the proposed civil stormwater storage system. We clarified that, and then I think there was questions that Doug had about some grading that is just to one side of the stairs that I think we clarified. So I think we're all good there.
Okay, is any comment from the board? I'll do the roll. Dan?
No comments, Caesar. Thank you.
Laura, you weren't directly involved in the meetings because you were alternate, but I believe you were listening. Do you have any comment to add?
No comments.
Kevin
No, thank you.
and Mike?
No comments.
I have no comment. Sarah, any public raising their hand or chatting?
There's nobody raising their hand and there are no comments in the chat.
Mary Ann?
Yeah, see, this requires going through the environmental assessment form.
Oh,
And we
thank you.
don't
I
need
forgot.
Yeah, we don't need to do that on most applications because although all actions are subject to SECR, if you're doing any work on 1 or 2 family houses, that's exempt from SECR, but this isn't a 1 or 2 family house, so we've got to go through the environmental assessment form, which is completed out, but we've got to do it. It's not going to take long, but I'll read through it. And I'll just read what we have as the answers. If anybody disagrees with any of it, just let me know.
Yeah, I'm not going to take a roll on every question. Mary Ann, just,
No.
just-
Yeah,
just-
if you don't
just
have
hold-
any, if you don't have any issues with it, Caesar, it's included in the resolution of approval, the negative
Okay.
deck. Okay.
just give a little pause in between each statement. So if anybody does have something to say, they can jump in.
Yeah. Does the proposed action only involve the legislative adoption of a plan, local law, ordinance, administrative rule, or regulation? No, it doesn't. Does it require a permit, approval, or funding from any other government agency? And that's no. You have to say what kind of land it is. It's commercial. Is it permitted under the zoning regulations? Yes. Is it consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan? Yes. Is it consistent with the predominant character of the existing built or natural landscape? Yes. Does it adjoin a state listed critical environmental area? And it does, the Hudson River. You just have to note that. Will it result in a substantial increase in traffic above present levels? That's no, because it's going to accommodate existing employees. Are public transportation services available at or near the site of the proposed action? Yes, there's train stations there. Are any pedestrian accommodations or bicycle routes available on or near the site of the proposed action? No. You see, a lot of these questions are irrelevant, but it's on the form. Does it meet or exceed the state energy code requirements? Yes, doesn't involve any energy. Will it connect to an existing public-private water supply? The answer there is no. Will it connect to existing wastewater utilities? No. Does it contain or is it substantially contiguous to a building, archaeological site, or district located on the National State Register of Historic Places? And the answer to that is yes. Is the project site or any portion of it located in or adjacent to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites? Yes. Does any portion of the site contain wetlands or other water bodies? Yes, because it's near the Hudson River. Would the proposed action physically alter or encroach into any existing wetland or water body? And the answer to that is no. I'm almost done. Identify the typical habitat types that occur or likely to be found on the project site. And we have urban. Does the site of the proposed action contain any species of animal or associated habitats listed by the state or federal government as threatened or endangered? And yeah, it does. The Atlantic sturgeon, I guess, is in the Hudson River. Is it located in the 100-year floodplain? No. Will the proposed action create stormwater discharge? If yes, and if yes, will it discharge flow to adjacent properties? The answer is no. Will stormwater discharges be directed to established conveyance systems? And that's yes. Does it include construction that would result in the impoundment of water or other liquids? No. Has the site of the proposed action been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? No. Has the site of the proposed action been the subject of remediation for hazardous waste? And the answer is yes. Project site adjoins the Hudson River, which is currently in remediation. Habitat reconstruction is going on along the river. Dredging was completed in 2015. As you can see, none of this is really relevant to this project. It's something you got to do. Okay.
You're done?
Yeah.
Do we need to vote to accept that?
Yeah, it's in the resolution.
Okay.
If you have no objections to it, you'll just vote yes on the resolution.
Does anybody have any comment on that, on the whole thing? I won't do the roll, just speak up. Okay, nobody spoke up. All right, does anybody have a problem with the resolution? You want to read the resolution and then we can,
Yeah.
oh, wait a second. Is any comment from the public on the environmental resuscitation that was done? And Sarah, you got anything?
No,
Chat and raising hand?
correct.
Okay, Mary Ann, you want to read the resolution? And then
Yeah,
we-
it's somewhat longer than usual. Whereas in September 2020, Estabrook Properties applied for site development plan approval to modify the ground floor of its building at 2 South Astor Street to create a 2-story parking garage and lower level open air parking area, jointly referred to as the parking garage, and to install retaining walls and stormwater drainage. And whereas the property is located within the View Preservation District. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in memoranda dated September 1st, October 5th, and November 25th, 2020, and January 4th and January 29th, identified a number of issues which were satisfactorily addressed in the submission for the March 3rd, 2021 meeting. And whereas Han referred the application to Mazer Consulting to review the size of the parking stalls and drive aisles, and Mazer recommended that certain spaces be eliminated so as to permit the proposed parking stalls to be enlarged to a more reasonable width. And whereas the applicant widened the proposed parking stalls as recommended. And whereas Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape consultant, reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated September 1st, 2020, made 2 recommendations which were satisfactorily addressed in the submission for the October 2020 meeting. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on September 2nd, October 5th, and December 2nd, 2020, and January 6th, February 3rd, and March 3rd, 2021. And whereas the proposed construction would have no impact on views of the Hudson River. And whereas the proposed parking garage is located on a parcel of property owned by Hudson Gray LLC, which is contiguous to a parcel owned by Stanford Bridge LLC, and access to the parking garage is over the Stanford Bridge property. And because the parking garage would be used by occupants, tenants, and invitees of buildings on both parcels, the applicant prepared a reciprocal parking garage access easement agreement to be signed by both Hudson Gray and Stanford Bridge, which was reviewed and approved by the village attorney. And whereas the applicant submitted an environmental assessment form as required by the State Environmental Quality Review Act, which the planning board reviewed and determined that the proposed action would have no adverse environmental impacts. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the planning board issues a negative declaration under SECRA. So that's where that is. And further resolved that the planning board grants site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Hudson Loft Parking Lot prepared by Ferguson Malone Architecture, and the drawings are all listed. The drawings entitled Proposed Additions and Alterations to South Astor Street prepared by Hudson Engineering and Consulting, and the drawing entitled Hudson Loft Parking Lot prepared by JMER Engineering, subject to the following conditions. 1, prior to the issuance of the building permit, the applicant must provide the village with an escrow payment to reimburse the village for the cost of retaining a New York State Code compliance specialist to determine A, compliance with all applicable New York State building codes, B, compliance with the proposed elevator with all applicable New York State and federal codes, and C, compliance with all applicable accessibility requirements of the New York State and federal codes. 2, prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant must provide proof of filing with the Westchester County Clerk Division of Land Records of a fully executed reciprocal parking garage access agreement in the form approved by the village attorney. 3, the owner operator of the parking garage must file for and maintain an operating permit as required by section 1203.3 of the building code of the state of New York and provide a copy of such permit to the Village of Irvington Building Department. And 4, the owner operator of the parking garage must provide the New York Department of State with an initial condition assessment report and periodic condition assessment reports as required by section 1202.3J of the New York State Building Code and provide copies of such reports to the Village of Irvington Building Department. That's it.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution as read by Mary Ann?
So moved.
Second, somebody.
Second.
Okay. Now, when you vote, you need to also state that Sarah can sign your name in the approval. Dan,
I approve of the motion and designate Sarah to sign for me.
Lori,
Approve, and Sarah can sign on my behalf.
Kevin,
I approve and also authorize Sarah.
Mike Smith.
I approve and I authorize Sarah to sign on my behalf.
This is Caesar. I approve and authorize Sarah to sign. Okay, John, thank you. Number 2 is 2021-07, 3 Beechwood Road.
Good evening.
Oh, there we go.
Hi, sorry, Chairman. Good evening. This is Stephen Bassini, architect representing the Sirotas of 3 Beechwood Lane, Beechwood Road. I received comments. We were here last month, and we received about a 25 comment letter. I've addressed most of them. It looks like there were about 3 different ones there that popped up here on Han's current memo, which I did discuss with him earlier today, and I feel that they're not anything that affects the project. There's some surcharge pipe that he wants in the roof leader and a correction on some of the elevations that are there. And I see that there's a typo of one of those elevations, and I see what he's talking about. So these are no issues that would change anything or impact the project in any way, and I can definitely amend those, hopefully, during the permitting process. I don't know if there's any other comments from the board, though.
Well, I remember there was a comment, you were going to, the drainage was in the buffer, the Broadway buffer. Was that taken
Correct.
care of?
Yes, it was. It was moved out of it, and
And
there's no disturbance in it.
and there was some screening that was discussed with our landscape architect.
Right. If I can share the pictures that I submitted.
Did you discuss it with Susan Nolan?
I did not discuss it. No, I submitted the comments to it and then some photographs expressing what was there, and I put it in my letter. I assumed that she was reading those. I'm sorry, I did not express it directly.
We'll take a look at it.
She was
Okay.
she was okay with it, Caesar.
Oh, you spoke to her?
No, but her memo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it. Okay.
I didn't see the most recent memo from, or a most
Yeah, she had
recent
no
memo.
comment. She had no comments.
Oh, I understand. Okay. So
All right.
then, yeah, those were the pictures that I submitted. So you all saw those, and obviously she did as well. Okay.
All right, that's the stockade fence. That's before you replaced, looks like I can see through that one. Did you replace some panels there?
There were some panels that were put there just for privacy purposes, some white panels that the owner put there in the interim until we could get this application. Yes.
Well, you say interim. Now that's troubling. Any new fence? Is this, what do you mean by interim?
There were just some panels from another fence that he put there in the meantime because it was falling down. And instead of repairing that, knowing that we would possibly be replacing that entire fence if this application was approved, he didn't want to go through and start buying new fence panels and putting them up there. So he had a spare one from an old fence and he put it in there just to patch that hole. It's
All right.
not really, go ahead, I'm sorry, Chairman.
When I drove by, it appeared there was a couple of new fence panels.
Are there a couple there? Okay, I saw the one from when I
Caesar?
walked.
Yeah.
Caesar, they match the existing fence. They're just new.
Yeah, I know. It's still, okay. Is that your,
Are they planning on replacing, didn't you change the note on the plan for that fence to stay now?
No, no, what we're doing is actually show on the site plan the types of fences that we're putting there. We're putting a stockade fence there along that entire strip, utilizing the same existing posts. And then there's a red cedar fence going along the sides of the property that are not really even visible. But no, that's going to maintain that stockade fence, just all new panels.
Ed, did you mean that the plans are something different than the stockade fence?
No. So can you put up the note? Can you put up the plans so we can see the note?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So
that's the stockade fence that we're putting in.
Right.
And I call it out on the site plan.
Right, and that's basically the same fence you have now.
Exactly. I call it out right here on the site plan.
Yeah. So Caesar, that fence matches the existing fence. It's just
Okay.
replaced.
Just wanted to make sure that when,
Thank you,
and you
Steve.
do realize any fence different than the exact character of the existing fence is a change in the fence and requires additional approvals.
Understood. It was more of a repair for the time, and I should have directed the owner maybe that we should have done something different. But in the meantime, I guess in the winter with the snow out there, he just quickly put something up.
No, the owner gave me a call. Caesar, we were aware of it.
Okay.
All right, and you have a front yard setback. Did you just show a picture of the front because one of the board members was not an active member last meeting?
Yes. We have the picture. Sorry, did not. Yeah, there it is. So that's the picture of the front existing and then the proposed here in the elevation.
Mm-hmm. And the front yard setback variance is how much?
Is
5 feet.
5 feet, I believe. Yep,
It
right
is
there.
5 feet.
5 feet, correct.
Okay. All right, anybody have, I'm going to ask for comments. Dan, you have any comments?
I have no comments here, Caesar. Thank you.
Laurie?
No comments. I was on the call last time, even though I wasn't voting, so I've reviewed
Okay.
it.
Kevin?
No comment.
Mike Smith?
No comments.
Caesar, no comments. Sarah? Anybody on chat or raising their hand?
There's nobody raising their hand and there's no comments in the chat.
Mary Ann, we have a resolution that we could listen to.
Yeah. Whereas in February 2021, Randy Bleichfeld Sirota applied for site development plan approval to construct a deck and patio at the rear of her house, to construct a front porch and walkway, and to install drainage structures at her property at 3 Beechwood Road. And whereas the proposed porch would be located within the front yard setback and therefore requires a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And whereas Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated February 1st listed a number of issues, most of which were satisfactorily addressed in a subsequent submission. And whereas Suzanne Nolan, the village's landscape consultant, reviewed the plans and made 2 recommendations which were adequately addressed in a subsequent submission. And whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on February 3rd and March 3rd, 2021. And whereas the action is a type 2 action under SEQR and therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled deck addition, patio, and front porch with the sheets enumerated, prepared by SJB Architecture and Design, subject to 1, receiving a front yard setback variance from the ZBA, and 2, complying with the items listed in the Han memorandum dated March 1st, 2021.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the resolution as read?
Motion to accept.
Second, anybody?
Moved. Second.
Okay, take the vote, a roll call. Dan?
I approve of this said motion and designate Sarah to sign for me.
Laurie?
I approve and Sarah can sign on my behalf.
Kevin?
I vote to approve and authorize Sarah to sign on my behalf.
Mike Smith?
I approve and Sarah can sign on my behalf.
This Caesar, I approve, and Sarah may sign on my behalf. All right, the motion's carried, and thank you very much for your presentation. And maybe we'll see you another time.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Have a good night.
Okay, next on the hit parade is 2021-08, 10 Hancock Place.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Chairman. Hi, everybody. Yes, this is James Krapp from Studio Park representing 10 Hancock Place and Richard Pascoe. We were here at the previous meeting. We received the latest information from Han earlier this week. A large amount of the information we were able to address in our latest presentation, but unfortunately, our engineers haven't had an opportunity to catch up to all of the information we need to give. So that being said, there's probably no way to gain full approval this evening. However, I do believe that we've addressed some of the major issues, that one being mostly of coverage. Yeah.
There's three issues, and coverage is one of them. Why don't we do that first? And so
Certainly.
we'll concentrate on coverage, and then we'll move on to number 2 issue and number 3 issue,
Sure.
rather than mixing them all up at the same time.
Sounds good. So the major portion of our request for relief is that we are over coverage within our IF40 region. Last time it was expressed concern to us that we were approaching 30% over coverage. We were asked to review with a neighborhood coverage diagram where we sit in relationship to other structures, as well as possibly just reduce so that our impact is less. First and foremost, we did that. We removed about 240 square feet of proposed coverage. We reduced our coverage from 30% down to 22%. And subsequently,
When you say 22%, is that over the allowable or over existing? That's over the allowable.
Over the
correct?
allowable. Over the allowable. Yes.
What is the existing?
The existing, I have to pull that up.
I've got it. It's 3,309.
Is that in compliance? Is
3,309.
the existing in compliance?
It is.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
We
go
have
ahead.
about 100 square feet of allowable. So almost anything that we do goes over.
Okay. Why don't you go to that comparison chart, because that's important for us to look at. The neighborhood comparison.
Would you like me to share my screen?
Yes, would like that very much.
Sure. Can you see the overhead aerial view?
Yes.
Okay. So 10 Hancock is right here in the middle. We reviewed 13 properties around 10 Hancock. What we found was that in its present state, the majority of the properties in the neighborhood are already over coverage. Even with our additional request of coverage, it still puts us as basically the middle of the road in the neighborhood.
Could you slide the chart up so we can see the chart?
Yeah, sure. So
a little more. In my screen, the pictures of everybody is obscuring the. Oh, good. Okay.
Okay. Is that better?
Up. Okay.
Okay. So I guess the best number to look at here is each property here. As you can see, this is assuming the number value is 1 and 1 being allowable. Almost every single property is over.
And which one, since we can't see the left, which one is 10 Hancock on that chart?
Yeah, I'm going to show you this chart because I think it makes more sense.
Oh,
so here's our allowable coverage is 12% in IF40. The neighboring properties range from 15% coverage to 26% coverage over, and that's existing within the neighborhood. We're above, the majority of the neighborhood is already over to begin with, and this is with our presumed or requested variance. So, as you can see, there's numerous. There's already several pools in the neighborhood, a lot of additional heavy coverage basketball courts, additional patios, other things. I know these might be pre-existing within the neighborhood, but within the density of things, we kind of fall right in the middle.
Okay. Anybody have any, I'm not going to poll. Did anybody have any questions on the density? We're going to move on to some other questions,
Sure.
but let's concentrate on the density for the moment. Dan,
No questions on the density, Caesar. Thank you.
anybody else? Laurie, Kevin, Mike Smith?
No, the comparison chart is very helpful.
I thought so too. All right, the next thing is the fence, or fences plural. Now, the fence along parallel to the aqueduct, you're going to raise that height to make it comply with the pool code.
That's correct.
Which essentially makes it a quote unquote new fence.
Yes.
Could you tell us what your thoughts were in relation to, if it's a new fence, any thought to moving it someplace else, since it's in the buffer zone, it's pre-existing, but now you're putting a new fence in, it has to be reapproved. So there may be an opportunity to make it better by moving it back or changing the design from chain link to something else. Could you elaborate on why you chose what you chose to leave it in place as a new fence, as opposed to moving it or changing what it looks like?
Certainly. Well, at this time, we thought the lowest impact was to replace it in kind. Essentially, right now, it's a 4-foot fence, and it's just too short. We find that actually, or I personally find, and the board may think differently, I find that chain link fence, dark chain link fence with plenty of screening is actually less obtrusive than, say, stockade fence or solid wall fence. It tends to blend in with the natural elements a little bit more. Obviously, all along the aqueduct, it's a mishmash of old and new and different decisions that are made. And I think our proposal of heavier planted screening, which...
You had pictures last time of what it looks like from the aqueduct.
Would you like me to pull those up?
Yeah. Yes,
Sure.
please.
2 seconds. Oop, wrong one. Sorry.
And while you're looking at that, just cover the issue of why you shouldn't move it back. Because it's right, it's in the buffer, you might want to move it back, but now you may want to, I mean, it'll come out of alignment with the other existing fence, but I'll leave that to you.
I guess the biggest concern is our desire was not to replace the entirety of the fence. And
Now,
simply,
the
the white is not ours, that's our neighbor's fence.
Okay.
So where you see the green wire chain link fence, that's where ours begins. You can see it right here. This is a better view. So this is essentially, we would bring this up just to align with the stockade fence. And then the plantings in between would be made denser, as we note in our landscape plan. I personally think the greenery is a better option than necessarily the stockade fence or some other kind.
It's hard to tell perspective. Is that chain link fence set back from the white fence, or is it the same line?
By a couple of inches, plus or minus, it's in alignment.
Material. Okay.
And you can see that fence runs the length of the property. Keep seeing here until you get down to the next stockade fence. So this is the entirety of the two edge.
What's that white fence there?
That white fence is on our property. That's shooting towards the street.
That's perfect.
So
all right. That's the next question.
That's here, a row of arborvitae. If you see right here, that fence continues.
That's your north fence.
Correct.
All right. Before we move to that, anybody got any thoughts on what we just heard about the fence that's parallel to the aqueduct?
I actually have a question. James, you said that you wanted to make use of the fences there. Does that mean you're going to leave that 4 feet and add 2 feet on top of it?
No, not physically, not like piggybacking on top of it, but the idea was
Okay.
to
Yeah,
keep
it's gonna be a new fence.
a new fence within the portion of the pool. So what we're talking about is, oops, that's my old pool. We're talking about replacing the chain link fence. We haven't proposed our interior fence as of yet, but we do need to add a fence within the property, or either bring all of the fences up to speed everywhere for pool code. So what we're proposing is an interior fence. Its materials to be determined. And we're just replacing this portion from the stockade fence that we talked about with new fence of appropriate height to this point. And then the 4-foot fence continues.
What's this point? I can't.
I'm sorry.
Wherever the interior fence is.
That's correct.
He hasn't located it yet, I guess.
Oh, it's
Well, we
just
haven't-
your cursor, okay.
Well, we're trying to somewhat move in steps so that we can get some positive feedback before we make other decisions. So, like, if we
I'm
don't
glad
like chain link, we need another direction.
I'm glad you mentioned a new interior fence, because the next comment was the north fence that's there doesn't meet code. And we would want to see what the north fence that runs perpendicular to the aqueduct is going to look like. And you said you haven't chosen the material yet.
Agreed.
For the interior fence. So we
Yeah,
wouldn't know what it's going to.
That's correct. A lot of our open comments are items that we haven't addressed at the design level, basically because we want to make sure that we can even get a pool approved. Some of these items are inconsequential if we can't make a pool happen. So.
Well, most of our comments relate to the things around the pool. So
and that's our next step.
You solved some of the pool problems by reducing the coverage, and the coverage appears to be compatible with the neighborhood. But that interior fence is going to need to be defined and described as what it's going to look like, because as you come down the aqueduct, you're going to be able to see that fence to some extent, not a lot, but we would like to know what it looks like. Any other comments on fencing? Ed, was there any other fence that needed to meet code? I know you said the north fence doesn't need it, but this interior fence seems to resolve that wherever it might be located.
Yeah, so the existing 5 to 6 foot tall picket fence doesn't meet the state building code. And then, like he said, the fence along the chain link fence that says replace, they haven't documented. They haven't shown us which fence they want to put up.
Yeah, we have not provided that yet. Ed, can I ask a question?
What about the west fence along parallel to Hancock?
That says to replace as well.
That's chain link in kind.
Yeah.
It's basically.
Well, in kind by 5 feet, right?
Yeah, tall enough as needed.
I interrupted you. I'm sorry. What was your question?
Oh, Ed, what makes the picket fence, and maybe picket is the wrong word.
Yeah, I'll send you the code in the morning. You can.
Okay. I actually think it's more of a board fence and solid, and I think that might be.
And it is, and it's actually the cleat that holds the board across. If that cleat can come off, it might work. You have to have 45 inches between between
the panels.
Horizontal. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it's something that we could retrofit without replacing.
I don't want to suggest anything but yeah, you can.
I'll take a look at the code.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Well, it's either fix the current fence or put in a intermediate fence, as you suggested.
I mean, there is other, what they're calling picket fence or board fence, and we can show what that is in more detail. And I don't know if we would want to replace it everywhere, but in our next iteration, we'll evaluate all the fencing.
All right,
and bring that to the table.
In case your new proposal includes using a house instead of fence, there are new rules about locking doors and locking windows.
No, but that doesn't. It's a separate fence. So we
did that on purpose.
No.
Our original plan in discussion with the client was to do that, and this intermediate fence removes that from our scope.
Well,
so.
Yeah, the revision of the new state. I'm
I
sorry.
just wanted to make sure he understood that because
No.
it is new and I'm glad he understands it.
Yeah, the 2020 revision in May is quite complicated. But that solves that problem.
Got it.
Yeah, they eliminated some simple solutions are no longer there.
Anybody have any questions on the fencing? Okay, and he can come back to it because we're not finished yet. Now on
No
the
worries.
plantings, the planting plan seems to be okay. It just needs to be firmed up actually on the plans. The discussion by the arborist seems accessible, but some of the plans, our landscape architect says what's the written word doesn't appear on the plans. So you have to put whatever the general discussion is to show it on the plans. And the other thing that's not shown on the plans is existing trees. Because one of the problems of planting new trees, if you're too close to an existing tree, you may wind up destroying the roots of an existing tree. And we wouldn't want to make it better, it got worse. So
Agreed.
you
Well,
need to just talk to or look at the comments in Han's letter from the landscape architect, which is probably attached to Han's letter.
Yeah.
And the tree protection seems to be okay. Again, tree protection, protecting the roots, that has to be shown. So there's 3 areas: existing trees, what you're planting needs to be shown, and root protection for the trees that you're going to be working around with equipment to dig the hole and all that. Those existing tree roots have to be protected. So the protection, existing trees, and where are the new trees, it all needs to be on the plan so there's no confusion as to what's going where.
Understood. There were discrepancies within our engineering plans, our surveyors and the arborist. The surveyor thought some trees were one thing and the arborist obviously has more knowledge than that. So we're merging those together, and we haven't sent an updated engineering package yet, which will include the protection for trees and clarifying the arborist information being on our engineering plans. Subsequently, also, all of the engineering issues that are still outstanding in Hans should be able to be resolved by one updated drawing, removing anything drainage-wise out of the Croton buffer, and providing additional information on grading. That should be resolved hopefully in our next iteration.
Yeah,
and
glad-
I do have one question.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I just saw one of my handwritten notes here, drainage in the buffer. I mean, you took care of that?
Well, I've requested to take care of it. We just haven't, in the 2 weeks between the 2 meetings, we haven't had a chance to catch up.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll
You
be
have
the
any
next
other-
go round.
Do you have any questions for us before I ask our board of any questions?
I do have a question, but it might need to be directed to Mrs. Nolan. Subsequently, when it comes to the Croton buffer as opposed to neighboring buffers, when it comes to privacy, like, are we required to maintain privacy between properties when it comes to screening of pools? And I just ask because certain neighbors might be really good friends with other neighbors that might want to communicate through those things. And I'm just wondering if there's any way to provide relief.
I think the major concern is not just screening like a wall of foliage. It is more make it look screening that looks natural, not just a wall of leaves. And you can discuss that with Suzanne.
Okay.
But that's especially interesting on the aqueduct. You want the screening, and I think yeah, there it is. You have, a fair good amount of plantings there, and it should grow into the chain link, and it should be fairly pleasant to look at rather than a board fence, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, we've had success with, we've proposed at this junction skip laurels in that area that have done fairly well. They've been the best deer resistant even though deer eat everything. They've been the best deer-resistant plant that we've seen in the region so far, and that's the bulk of
Ms.
what we're
Nolan
proposing.
mentioned the skip, she found the skip laurels acceptable, if I remember.
That's correct.
All right, let's go to the board. Dan, you have any questions on, just because we didn't cover it in the three things doesn't mean you can't ask another question. So
No,
it's wide open. You can go back to anything.
No, I agree with James, the architect there, in reference to the fence with the screening. I think it's more of a natural look rather than the stockade,
Thank you.
overbearing type of look.
Laurie?
Natural, I would say. So I would agree with the chain link fence on the aqueduct.
Laurie?
Yeah, I'm fine with the chain link, and I definitely think it should be kept in alignment with the existing fences.
Yeah, I agree. Kevin?
Yeah, for whatever it's worth to the applicant, I agree with the sentiment of everybody that has spoken about the fence so far. Chain link, as somebody who runs that route frequently, walks it frequently, I think that the chain link is much more natural, particularly when coupled with the plantings. So yeah, for whatever it's worth, I would support that.
Mike Smith?
Thanks.
I agree with Kevin, and I'm fine on the coverage.
Yes, this is Caesar. I have no further comment. All three items went very well. You're going to need to come back as you suspected,
Caesar, I have something.
but I didn't finish with the public yet.
Okay.
Sarah, you got anything out in the public? Any chat or raising hands?
There's nobody raising their hand, and there are no comments in the chat.
Can we go to the hand raiser?
Oh, there was nobody raising their hand right now.
Oh, I thought you said there was. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, there wasn't. Sorry.
Okay, so we're done with the public. It's no comment. Sarah?
No comments.
All right, Mary Ann, you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, James, on the application, there you list yourself as the applicant. The applicant should be the owner of the property, and you're the professional. But that
Did I flip-flop it accidentally?
pardon?
Did I flip-flop it accidentally, or?
Well, I
just-
don't know. You have you, but anyway, that's not the big deal. The very end of it, there's a certification by the owner that says I've authorized all of this, and I recognize that I have to pay all the bills on, this review, and you signed it, and it should be the property owner. So you don't have to redo the application totally, but redo the last page of the application. It was in the last submission. We do that last page and have the property.
It was
owner.
in the first one, not in the latest package. So-
It was in
okay.
it was in the latest package. I don't know why there was an application in there. Maybe it was just resubmitted, but it was in the second one. But in any event.
I'll fix it. I'll look back at both and
Yeah,
I'll
just make
fix that
sure we've
last
got
page.
the signature from the property owner.
No problem. Thank you for the heads up.
Hey, you're all set there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that went well. We'll see you next time, and hopefully we'll be able to move on the next time.
All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the end of 10 Hancock Place. We'll go to number 4, which is 2021-14, 4 Camden Court.
Hi, I'm Malone, Ferguson Malone Architecture, representing the Camden Court project. This is a submission for that is in the Legend Hollow development. There is an existing deck that we are planning to remove the and put a deck back in approximately the same footprint to basically to the south side of what's indicated there. And then in the area where this volume would be a small walkway and stairs to give access to a new basement entry situation. So the project is relatively simple. It is in the Legend Hollow area. So in terms of coverage, it's vinculated in the manner that we've discussed in the past. I see that we received one note about undocumented work. We tried to indicate which portion of the work was undocumented in the coverage calculations. And I to clarify, rather than this category here of total existing coverage, we would just break these down into these three categories. So the existing coverage that was documented at the time of subdivision that is related to structures. There's the existing coverage that was documented at the time of subdivision for walks and AC pads, which were not counted at the time, and it's important for the way this area is calculated. And then there's this undocumented work, which is a portion of the deck that was not originally documented, patios and walkways in the rear yard. So, I mean, unless I'm misunderstanding that, Ed, we can just pull out this category here where we've added these undocumented existing things, and we'll just leave that out and then just leave the three categories, provided total coverage, if that makes
John, put that over in the proposed.
Yeah, no, John, that looks
Whatever.
good. You did a good job on the existing. If you can just re-explain it in the proposed, it'd be fabulous. No, this was easy for us to understand. If you could just include it, the breakdown in the proposed, so we know what you're taking out.
Okay. Okay. I'll touch base with you offline to make sure I understand. I don't want to.
Yeah.
The way it's presented is a little confusing.
But only in the proposed, Caesar. The existing is well explained.
Right. So you can explain that offline.
Okay. Okay. I think what we did in the proposed is we incorporated everything that was indicated as undocumented here into these categories here of proposed, like it was moving from undocumented into proposed. And we don't have to do that. We'll just keep it. It'll be easier. I understand it now. You just want that's just going to say work to be legalized. I got it. So it's less.
Right. You got it.
And you can check to make sure the numbers work. All right.
Right.
Speaking of the work to be legalized, we have to consider that as if it's not there and it's proposed. And as such, it's in the waterway. It's in the watershed rather. And according to code, the only way we can approve something in the watershed is if there's an environmental study that says there's no environmental harm. So you're going to need to produce such a study. I think, Mary Ann, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 224.72.C-11.
Yeah.
It's about the watershed. So we'll forward
everything
the
past the
code
deck is in
section.
the watershed, and
Right.
there's the fire pit and many walkways. That at a minimum of undocumented that we have to consider as new, and as new, you need to do this environmental study.
Right. So we'll engage wetlands consultant, Beth Evans, and have her provide the report. I'm assuming it's probably a requirement similar to wetland, where you just would have to document what kind of impact it could potentially have on the water.
Yeah, John, there's also a section in there about passive recreation. Focus on that as well.
Yeah, the jungle gym.
Well, the jungle gym's passive.
Yeah, I know, but that's in the watershed.
Yeah.
Now, Doug, what about the stormwater from the undocumented? Does that have to be treated as new?
I meant to discuss that with Ed.
Well, let's see where we go with the undocumented, Caesar. If when it's all said and done, the only thing left are walls, the deck drains through already, so there might not be a need for drainage. You know, if all the walkways and fire pit are removed, not leading anybody at this time, then there's no drainage to deal
Okay.
with.
All right, just two more items I have in my notes. Tree number 1 needs to be identified on the plans for protection. It may be on the plans, but you got to note it for protection for the roots.
I think there was a typo. It indicated protection, but it indicated the wrong detail number. So we'll correct that.
Okay. And a little housekeeping, one of the fences is not on the property.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask. I understand that it's not, and you know, I think it probably got where it was to try to avoid existing trees. Is that something that if there's tree impacts associated with relocating it, it might be better to leave it in place? Would that be something you could ask? But this is village property, I assume, on this side. Is that something we could ask the village for? Or would you go to the board of trustees and ask them for?
I'm going to leave that to Mary Ann. I mean, it's.
Yeah,
I mean,
I guess that was a question from Mary Ann.
At some point, I don't want to quit claim and wind up the property becomes property owners.
Right. You'd want to avoid some claim that it's not village property. But I think the reason the fence ended up where it was is that there's a lot of trees along that line, and the posts were. I mean, this was the previous owner. This is not our client who installed this fence. But when I looked at it, it seemed like there was some rationale.
Need to address it because I don't think our approval should legitimize taking of property by approving.
No, I guess I understand.
Mary Ann, what's the story with the fence on the other property?
It needs to be moved, Caesar. As part of this application, it's on village property.
Okay. There you go. You got your answer.
And it's a watershed. It's not like, you know, a little issue. It's a big issue. It's a big issue.
Okay. So then I think the other items that were in there, you asked for the plans for the basement renovation to be included. You can do that. And I think everything else was addressed. I did want to get to some understanding of what bigger stormwater requirements. I think when we submitted it, there was considered a reduction in coverage. So we didn't show additional stormwater, but I guess we'll look at that based on the guidelines when we revise it, right? In terms of how much additional square.
Yeah, because the legalization is proposed.
Okay.
No, I understand that. So we'll see if you know where we hit relative to the village's guidelines on stormwater and see if we need to do anything there.
Right.
And then there were other small items like max height for a retaining wall and some other stuff. So I think our crucial thing, if I understand it correctly, is to understand if there's what the watershed impacts are, and we'll get Beth Evans to determine that for us.
Well, that is important because you put, not you, but one put material in the watershed, put certain material in a location where we may not have approved it in the first place, and now it's there.
Right.
And we shouldn't be rewarding willy-nilly something that was done without approval in an area that it's not supposed to be in the first place.
Right. No, I understand. I think that, you know, we would want that to be, yeah, we want to understand, you know, what potential impact this stuff may have on the watershed. So, well,
like I said, the code does provide a review process for that, and go over the code and meet the spirit and the spirit plus of whatever the code says in terms of the environmental issues.
Right.
And it's not just, oh, it's far away. Okay.
Right. Yeah. We'll have Beth Evans give us action on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that you guys need?
Well,
on that, I think it was pretty.
I'm going to go through the board here and see what's up. Dan,
Okay.
You have anything?
No comment here, Cecil. Thank you.
Lori?
I just had a question. We didn't really cover this, but there's a proposed fence and gate on the to the side of the deck. Is that where the HVAC units are? Is that why that's there?
I'm not sure. Let me just see on our site.
It's on the side where you show a barbecue would be on the deck to the left of that.
Oh, yes, that's AC units. It's solid.
Okay.
It's that is a screen. Yeah, it's a screen for
Okay,
AC units.
thank you.
You okay with that, Lori?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I knew what I was looking at. Thanks.
All right, Kevin,
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Mike,
No further comments. I just wanted to emphasize, not really for John, but for anybody else who may be listening, that the requirements on building in the watershed are not just technical. There are important reasons why we haven't allowed anything to be built in the watershed.
Right.
and for those who don't, I'm not familiar with what we mean by watershed. It's the watershed of the Irvington Reservoir, which you all see behind the dam as you go up Cyrus Field Road. Okay, Sarah, okay, Mike, you done with that?
Yeah.
Sarah, any comment from the public, chat or hand?
Nobody's raising their hand and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay, thank you, John. We'll do
Yeah.
next.
Okay.
All right, moving along to number 5, which is 2021-13, 75 Hamilton Road.
If you're here to represent the application, can you please hit the raise? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you see me and hear me?
Yep.
Very good.
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. My name is Sam Vieira. I'm the project architect. And we effectively have basically come to you for a recommendation and indication about the viability of this proposed project. I was retained by Mr. and Mrs. Choi, the owners, to assist in the design of a single-story addition to the rear of their home. We settled on a 28-foot wide by 16-foot deep footprint, which is 448 square feet, to the rear of the property. In the middle of our design phase, the previous owner, because they're relatively new owners to the home, the previous owner came by and they told them about the work that they were considering doing, and he advised them that he had also contemplated an addition to the rear of the property, but that he was basically dissuaded or actually legally denied a permit to do so. I'm not quite sure if he actually put a formal presentation or application before this board. He subsequently changed course and had a second floor addition proposed and approved by your board for this residence. That addition was never built. He subsequently sold the house to the present owners, my clients. So we were taken aback a little bit about this. So I actually spoke to Ed Marin to gain some direction from him. And the main reason was because the property sits primarily within a flood zone. And so when we regrouped with the owners, I told them that, there could be maybe a mitigating factor here, in which case, instead of doing a traditional addition with a full foundation, that we would they contemplate an addition that would be on piers, therefore reducing substantially the amount of displacement of the floodplain and the disturbance to the property. So if I may, Sarah, I'd like to share the screen. Do I just hit my, oh, here it is, share screen, sorry. There you go. So as you can see on the cover sheet and the site plan that I showed you, on the left side, is the survey, pretty much untouched, with the gray area showing the floodplain. And I've also highlighted in the outline of the proposed addition where the 8 piers would be located. And as we move on the, I can't move it anymore, sorry. On the proposed site plan with the actual footprint of the addition and proposed patio that we want to do, you can see how the two relate as far as the zoning requirements and the amount of disturbance. The addition itself can be built in compliance with the zoning code. What we do have is an overage in the allowable coverage, and that is brought upon by the owner's desire to try to have a patio area so that they can have some outdoor dining space. And we're over the coverage. The math is basically 133 square feet above the allowable coverage. And this patio in question is 263 square feet. So
I was a little confused on that. You're saying the existing coverage is over and this is going to add?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. The existing coverage is not over.
Oh, okay.
The proposed addition will also not be over. What we have here is that darker area that is the proposed patio. That proposed patio measures 263 square feet. It therefore creates an overage of allowable coverage of 133 square feet.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the overage of the coverage is can be directly blamed, if you want, on the patio. So we are fully aware of the fact that this is, by your standards, an incomplete application, but we were concerned that if the location within the floodplain was something that effectively was a deal breaker, we were hoping to not have to incur the costs and the fees of engineering and so forth and so on if the board was adamant about not letting this move forward. If the board sees fit that either through normal construction or these mitigation efforts of putting the project on piers, and then of course we would retain engineers to come in and come back with a fully complete and comprehensive application. I also want to make one other point, is that in this board's review of the previous application for the second story addition, which took place back in May and June of 2019, stormwater mitigation was achieved through an attenuation gallery in the front. So that also gives us some comfort that and this was approved by Han Engineering and by this board. So it gives us some comfort that there is a viable mitigation method here for any stormwater management that needs to be addressed.
Well, putting it up on piers certainly greatly diminishes the footprint of displacement, as you said. For those who are not aware of it, the village has floodplain management laws, and if you displace a cross area that the flood water cannot use anymore, you're displacing it to someplace else. In other words, if you take away an acre of where the water might have gone, if you take that away, it's likely you're going to raise the water level someplace else. And that would require a lot of work to find out how much that is and what kind of impact that may be someplace else. Now, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, while the piers themselves are not displacing very much, it's still in a wetland. Wouldn't it be some kind of calculation to show that it's de minimis displacement?
Caesar, he's got to fill out all the permit requirements for the floodplains, wetlands, and watercourse, and that'll go through all of those issues.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously a column is a lot different than a foundation, but it's still in the floodplain, and we would, I'm sure that well, I'm not sure, but one can assume, but one should never assume that the column is not displacing very much of an elevation someplace else. But one should go through that a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, in my letter that I wrote to you and the board, you can find that I did the calculations. A typical foundation, if it were to be dug down to the same level as the existing foundation, would have displaced 59.2 cubic yards. And these
Okay.
piers are displacing 3.9 cubic yards. That's substantially different.
Yeah, I figured it was a substantial difference, but it's still there.
Right, yes.
Okay, and the drainage, and I think you have to update the coverage. There was a little bit of, Ed and Doug had some issues with the coverage. You can go over that with them. And
Okay.
there's all the engineering issues. And correct me if I'm wrong, is there a 30-inch maple tree back there somewhere?
Uh,
40-inch, a big maple.
There is, yes, it's in the back, but it's substantially far. I mean, it's a good 20 feet.
Yeah, but just show some protection for it, so
Oh, absolutely, Mr.
so
Chairman.
the machine doesn't back into it.
No, and actually, when you think about it, the digging, the excavation for a project like this, if it moves forward with the piers, is either going to be done with a very small machine or maybe even by hand, because again, we're talking about piers, not a full foundation. And we're well aware that this was an incomplete application. We
Yeah,
simply
and you got to do the normal stuff, so
Exactly.
so fences, blah, no,
build fences.
well, the usual suspects. I don't have anybody on the board. Dan,
No comment.
you're okay with the piers in the floodplain?
Uh,
Assuming all the calculations and engineering gets done,
Correct, yes. I
conceptually.
Conceptually, at this point, yes.
Laurie?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that not specifically this plan, but something close with piers was approved for the previous owner. Is that correct?
That's incorrect. No, and again, I don't know the details. A proposed addition to the rear of the house was either officially not approved or the owner was deterred from pursuing that. So what the owner did was come back with a proposal to put a second story on the house. The house is only a 1,500 square foot. rear.
Second story in the house not impacting the floodplain.
Right, exactly.
Oh, okay, got it. A second story. You're proposing doing the piers instead of
I'm
the
proposing
second
to-
story.
They-
Okay,
they're-
that's,
right.
yeah.
They chose to build on the same footprint. We're requesting expansion, but on piers.
Got it. I mean, I think it's a good solution given the floodplains if everything works out as far as stormwater, et cetera.
And I have a question. I just thought of a question in between my question. What about rear yard setback, Ed? That building, the extension off the back is okay with rear yard setback?
Yeah, way clear.
Way clear.
Okay,
Yeah, way clear. Technical term.
way clear. All right, Kevin.
But
anything?
just remember, Sam, on your coverage, you have to include all the walls along the stream as well and the bridges.
I'm pretty sure we did.
Okay, it wasn't highlighted.
We followed the format of the breakdown.
I didn't see it in the breakdown. That's why. But you might have tallied it into one group.
We did. We grouped.
Okay, break it out so we can just make sure we get
We
that.
took care of everything, even the
And
metal.
I think we had that, but there was a couple other things, window wells, AC pads.
Right.
So check all that too on the walls.
That's all included, I'm pretty
Good.
sure, but we will verify that. I do have a question for the board, please. I know it's getting late, but in Susan Nolan's review, there is a category called recommendations requirements. Number 4, show screening of the addition from neighboring properties. What category does that fall under, a recommendation or a requirement? Because I would assume that's a neighbor to neighbor discussion, unless I'm
Well,
mistaken.
there really should be some screening. I looked at that house. There's no plantings anywhere along that strip. Some planting would be a good idea.
Well, the owners are listening in, and I'm just trying to get from you and the board direction as to whether this is something that, if they want it, fine. If they were not planning on it and talking to the neighbors, I mean, how does the board generally handle something like this? We're not talking about the aqueduct buffer like one of the previous applicants, right? So.
Now, it is a structure up on piers, and you may want to disguise that a little bit.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Where did I leave off? Kevin?
I apologize if I missed this in the presentation so far, but could you just speak to the reasoning behind the choice not to put the addition above on the second story and to do it in this method?
Well, yeah, because I mean, effectively, this is a ranch. And the room that they're trying to achieve is a more of a sunroom and eating area, like a dining area.
Okay.
And so therefore, to put those two spaces on the second floor wouldn't make any sense.
The different objective for use. Okay.
Right, exactly, right. I believe, I mean, when the previous applicant did the second story addition, they effectively doubled the size of the house. And I saw the drawings, but my impression was that they created all of the bedrooms upstairs and then all of the living quarters, and shared spaces downstairs, which completely changed the dynamics of the home. This is simply to gain that space.
Presumably, the other houses, the neighboring houses are also in a flood area like this. Are you aware of any of them having made similar applications on piers or any in the community that have done similar type of work like this?
I am not, no, I'm not aware, but I could ask Ed to help me research this. I'll work with Sarah to see if there have been any recent applications.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mike?
I think the piers are a practical solution, and I only have one question, and that is roughly what you said that the patio will create a 133 square foot overage. But about what percentage is that? Over allowable?
Well, allowable is 3,000.
4.2% over the allowable roughly, the whole entire
Thank
thing.
you.
Okay, I
Nice to have an engineer nearby.
Roughly.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, Mike, thanks. Sarah, anything from the public, hand raised or chat?
Nobody's raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
And I'm just going through here. Okay. Thank you very much. That was
Thank you all, and thank you for all your efforts.
interesting concept, and like I said, since it's going to be up on piers, may want to disguise the piers.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
That crawl space under there. And
well, look, if you look at the elevations, the crawl space, what we're planning to do is to put some lattice screening with a solid background. So it will not look like it's on piers, but it will only have panels that are supported from the actual structure.
Okay,
I understood from Susan's notification is the screening of the addition from neighboring properties. I assumed she meant on the property line, but is the board's contention that you?
That's not necessarily true. It may be better right near the.
Perfect. Okay. Now
where I think, well, in my opinion, which I'm an engineer, so what do I know? It would look better against the, closer to the, because if you look past, if it's on the property line, you look past the bush and you see what I'm trying to hide, which is the deck.
Right.
So
I just put the elevations up on the screen, Mr. Chairman, just to give you an idea of of what we're talking about.
Some screening around the piers so it doesn't look like dangling in midair.
Very well.
Caesar, and honestly, in that strip of homes, there's not a lot of screening between homes.
I know,
Property lines, it's pretty open.
Yeah, so that's why it's even a better idea to put it nearer to the expansion.
Point well taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. I think we're done. We went to the public. We polled everybody. Okay, we're done. See you next time.
Very well. We'll see you with more information. Good night, all. Thank you.
Not sure you'll be here in a month if you got to go through all this stuff that you got to do, but we'll see you in the future.
Well, thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's it for 75 Hamilton. Going to number 6, 2021, 12, 14 Castle Road.
Hello, I am Troy Wojciechowski, engineer for the applicant, Barry Honig, 14 Castle Road. The project we have submitted for you for tonight's meeting involves the installation of a new in-ground pool and surrounding patio. The parcel's about a half acre. It's in the 1F20 district. And if I may, I'll share my screen and bring up the site plan for you. Okay, so you can see here is the end of the cul-de-sac, Castle Road, the driveway down to the existing house. The property falls off towards the backyard. Here's the proposed rectangular in-ground pool, 20-foot wide by 50-foot long, and a modest patio around it. We do have about a 5-foot retaining wall in this location here. The next plan shows our stormwater management. Oh, didn't really come up there. Let's see here. Let's try that again. Okay, it's not really working for me, but in any case, what we did was we submitted preliminary plans to the planning board, really to get the board acquainted with the project. This project will require a variance for coverage. The allowable coverage is 14%, and with the pool and the patio improvements, the proposed will be 21.7%. So our hope is that the planning board will refer us to the zoning board to pursue that variance. So a lot of the comments that we received from the Han letter pertained a lot to stormwater management and utilities and things like that. We still have to do test pits and perk tests to prove out the proposed preliminary storm design. And so we would, we want to do that after we see if we are successful with obtaining the variance from the zoning board. If I go back to the site plan, you can see, I don't know why that keeps disappearing on me here. Along this property line here, we do propose some evergreen arborvitae trees. The property to the east over here is much lower, so we're not proposing any additional screening in this area. The proposed pool code fence is going to be very specific to around the patio, and we're proposing a 5-foot black aluminum picket style fence that will meet the New York State pool code requirements.
What you described, is there details on the plans describing that fence?
If we don't have them now, we will certainly put them on there for our next submission. Let's see if we do actually have it on there.
Okay.
So this is the designer, Steve Griggs' design. We worked with on a very similar project, basically the neighbor behind them on Palliser Road. So this was the same fence that we used for that application. I think it was about 2 years ago. We obtained approval from the board, and we also, similar situation with the coverage, so some of Han's letter talked about, and when we saw it in the earlier application for a coverage to compare the coverage of the neighbors in the neighborhood to see how it compares. So we actually have a lot of that done from that application 2 years ago. And, just looking back to that application, the neighbors basically had coverages ranging from 14%, the maximum allowed, up to, like 25%. So our parcel seems to be, basically in the middle for this project here.
Now, before we move off the coverage, Doug and Ed, are we agreeing with the numbers he just said about coverage?
I'm not
I'd like to
familiar
see
enough
it
with the other
listed and
project.
broken down, because there was a little question.
We have, let's see, I can pull up our
You don't need to pull it up, but there was, if you look at our memo number one, we just wanted to see it listed out with square footages. You could send that to me early if you want, but.
Caesar, I think what was happening was Mr. Wojciechowski
That
was,
was very good. Excellent.
I grew up in a Polish neighborhood.
I could tell.
The numbers he was giving is the percentage of coverage on the site, which isn't really so relevant. What Doug's memo has is how much it's over allowable. And it's over 50% over allowable, and it could be a little higher because it's not clear that everything else, everything was included in the coverage. So it's, it's, it's 52, it would be 52.1% over allowable without the other stuff that might be in there.
And there's a question of on the plans, right there, in the upper right-hand corner, that little rectangle.
Right.
What's
Yeah,
that?
that's actually like a garden area that has pea gravel and soil, so that's not impervious. So
Yeah, but it's still coverage. If it's a gravel path, it's coverage. Also, the air conditioners and generator aren't included.
right. We didn't include the
Right.
AC units in a generator, so we could add those
Yeah.
areas.
And any gravel area is considered coverage in Irvington.
Oh, okay. So, maybe what we'll do is we'll pull off the pea gravel area off of that. We'll add that in as well.
Let's be clear, the 52% or 50%, and we don't even know, it might be more when you include the areas that are not included. Is over coverage is of great concern to us, and you need to relook at the size of your patios, and 50 plus % over allowable is a considerable number to ask us to approve.
Okay. I mean, I think we have some flexibility with the patios. We could look to reduce those. I think we did similar for the application 2 years ago on Palliser Road. And I think the zoning board had requested that. So knowing that your board is looking in that direction, I can talk to the applicant about that and try to reduce some of that patio square footage and come into the.
Were you listening to the earlier pool?
Yes. Yep.
And he had a nice chart on the neighborhood comparison.
Yep. We'll provide the same. We'll provide that as part of our zoning board application, but we'll also provide it to your board as well. Yep.
And the pool fence, does what he presented in the detail, was that enough detail to say it meets state code?
Yeah, the state code changed in May last year, so you're going to need to revisit that fence detail.
Okay.
All right, and also.
I'm sorry, Ed, when did that change?
May 2020.
Okay.
And the pool, as you stated, is on a slope, so the downhill side is what? Would you say 5-foot retaining wall?
Correct. Yep.
And Doug, shouldn't we have some profiles of what it looks like?
Yeah, we can provide some visuals on what that is. I believe.
Sorry, I was on mute there. But yeah, I believe we asked for some sections on there in here.
Yeah, we'll provide materials. I believe what we're proposing here is a masonry retaining wall with stone facing on it, so it fits in with the rest of the stone walls on the property.
Well, you may want to consider some screening, a 5-foot retaining wall. I don't know. When I was out there, it was hard with all the snow and everything. It was hard to see what's further downhill. I don't know who's looking at that 5-foot retaining wall, or even the side walls are probably 5 feet to nothing along the neighboring property. I'm sure they don't want to look at a wall either, even though it's a pretty wall. So you may want to consider some screening along the retaining wall, along the side.
Sure. Yep, that's a good idea. I don't think there's on the north side here. I think they're so low, and on the east side they're low.
I'm talking about the west side.
Yeah, and the west side, this neighbor can see through. I actually brought a photo up here. Let's see. So this is looking up at that neighbor there, basically in the location of the pool. So this is where those evergreens are proposed along here. But we can look at possible shrubs and lower growing, plantings closer to the pool and to the wall, for sure.
Oh, also on the property line too, I think, I think that's what Suzanne was looking at.
Yep.
Yep. And in the planting and in the construction of the pool, if you have to show trees where the tree roots might be impacted in the digging and the erection of the walls.
Yes, in fact, we saw the
I saw some
Nolan.
pictures and it didn't look like there were too many trees back there, but it was hard to tell.
Right, and what we'll do, and Nolan required it. I think this is looking up, back up to the house, so the pool will be located in this area here.
We're
So it's
looking
really-
at the short end of the pool right now.
Correct, right. You're looking north to south up to the house. So there's nothing really in the direct area of the pool and patio, but you're right. We do want to locate the trees close to the construction area to see if any will be impacted. I think there's one tree that we need to remove that's going to be too close to the pool, so we need to show that as well.
You're going to remove it because it's in the footprint, or?
I think it's directly adjacent to the footprint. So like you said, the roots will be destroyed on over half of the tree. So it'll
Well, the tree would have to be identified and obviously replacement.
Right. Yep.
A replacement tree. I mean, what kind of a tree is it? Is it greater than 8 inches? Do you know? I mean, is it a protected?
I don't think it's a protected tree, but to be honest, I'll have to find out.
Okay.
I think it's less than 8 inches.
All right.
I can find that out for you.
And there's an existing, the old castle that goes with the tea house up there.
Yeah.
While it's been there for 100 years or whatever it's been there, it can be part of coverage, and I don't know if you included it.
Yes, that's included.
All right. In your description of what you're including in coverage, you need to don't lump things together because it's hard to tell what's included in the lump sum.
Sure.
And
Yep.
Doug will go over that with you.
Okay.
What about rock?
There's rock. There's rock on this property. So the test pitting will be an important part of this as far as the stormwater design goes, because there are rock outcrops up by the house. And
I saw it on your plans.
yeah, and off to just to the right of the photo. I think that's just catching a little bit of it. So to the side as well. So we'll have to deal with that as far as the stormwater infiltration practices go. And we'll probably, if we have to, the soils are good here. They're very permeable, sandy type soils. So that's good. So, we can take some of the material that we take out for the pool excavation and place it to help us with the infiltrators. As far as the rock goes, the pool designer and contractor are trying to limit any rock excavation. I think it's going to be required just a little bit up on the house end of the pool, and they're just going to have to hammer it. But for the
Ed, I have a question. Is the approval of the planning board include the rock excavation, or do you have to come back to somebody to hammer rocks?
Well, we have a rock ordinance. They're entitled to 38 days to rock hammer, and that's it. Maybe a small extension, then they can't rock hammer again for a year and a half. There's a permit involved. Planning board's not involved. Rock crushing is where planning board gets involved. But you can ask and you can judge rock removal as part of your review if you want.
Yeah, regular site plan approval.
Yeah.
But I don't want a planning board approval to imply that they're free without any other further submissions to start rock blasting or rock hammering, or you said they have to come back for a permit even if we gave them.
No. Our ordinance doesn't require planning board approval for rock hammering and blasting. Although site development plan approval could include a review of that.
But they have to, in spite of the planning board approval, they still have to come for a permit to do rock work.
But not to your board.
Not to my, I don't care if it, in
Correct.
fact, it's even better, it doesn't come to my board.
We'll send the paperwork to your house.
As long as there's somebody that has to approve, an application has to be made, and somebody like you or the engineer has to, before anybody takes a hammer to a rock, there has to be a village approval of some form.
There is an approval process.
And if they don't secure that approval, you can issue a stop work order.
Yeah, the pool never gets built.
Okay, I wanted to be clear on that, so we don't wind up next summer with rock hammering and nobody knows why.
Well, they'll try to sneak it in, everyone knows.
Not us.
Troy, real quick, infiltrators have to be, half of it has to be in virgin ground, bottom
Okay.
half.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, isn't there a certain separation between the bottom of an infiltration gallery and the top of rock?
Yeah, and I think we've done deep tests with, I think he's done deep tests in Irvington before, so he's should be aware of that, right?
Yep. We'll make sure we meet all the minimum separation requirements.
Okay. We talked about the castle. Talked about what we thought was a shed, but as a planting area that counts as coverage. Talked about the screening. And you got the message about the coverage being a major
a
interest to
concern.
the planning board.
Sure. And so if it's okay with the board and with Ed and Doug, we'll make any adjustments to our plan probably with respect to the patios, and send those figures and calculations to Ed and to Doug before we submit to the zoning board. Is that okay?
Yeah, you're gonna resubmit to this board first.
You got to
Yeah.
come to the board first. There's too many questions pending here, and you need to come to this board first.
The zoning board won't rule on it or even consider it until they've heard from the planning board on it.
And
Right.
they won't be here. Whatever they hear, they'll be negative. So we're not sending something
So
over
you
that.
should, yeah, you should wait till till the planning board is comfortable with it before you go to the zoning board.
You know, I'm sure you understand that we're not we're not comfortable with the overage, and until the coverage, and until that's ratified, it's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody got a comment on the board? Dan,
No, Caesar, you covered everything. Pretty.
Laurie,
I'm good, thank you.
Kevin? Kevin, are you unmuted?
I apologize. I have some questions, but I think I might wait till the next time around where I think it'd be more productive.
If we don't want to ask new questions on a second submittal, so if it's something they can address between now and then, it would be good to ask now.
I guess I'm just a little bit confused. It seems like where the location of the outcrops of the rock will have a lot of bearing on the placement and sizing of the pool, it would seem, particularly given the ordinance. So it's quite a gamble on the part of the homeowners. I mean, I don't think how do you know very much until you start doing borings and test pits? How can you really place the pool until you know more? It's just sort of a question. So I don't.
Well, that's a good question.
Wondering this in the background.
I remember when my brother when we built my brother's house, there was rock everywhere, and we kept moving the house to find the right spot for the basement among the rock outcropping.
Right.
And if you move the pool to someplace else, it changes the approval of the planning board.
Right.
Well, I think the location that we show it right now is the only place it can logically fit on the site.
Right.
And also, looking at the rock outcrops over here, and up here, it's really the only approvable location for this in my mind. It really can't be shifted any further to the north, and side to side, you can see it's just restricted. So it's one thing that I'll end up speaking with the pool designer and the homeowner about. You know, typically, you know, we try to at least get, you know, a feel for the approval, you know, especially a variance of this nature for the coverage before we start tearing up their backyard. But it's, you know, it is helpful, as you said, to kind of assess where the rock is and how much rock excavation will be involved. You know, again, probably 2/3 of the pool will be out of the rock, for sure, because it's going to be in a fill. But the upper side towards the house, you know, there's going to be some rock excavation, and you're right. At this point, we don't know the extent of it.
Okay.
So, you know, I'll talk to them, to the homeowner and to the pool designer to see if, you know, they want to get a mini excavator in there and kind of assess that.
And my only other, I'm sorry, Caesar.
Mary Ann and Ed, is it not true that if they wind up, the rock is so bad, they have to move the pool, they have to come back to the planning board for any new
Yes.
location?
Yeah,
Yes.
any significant change will have to go back.
Yeah, no, we understand that.
And my other question is an engineering question. So if you're removing whatever is there, be it soil or rock, what does that do in terms of I guess the integrity of that area that's elevated above whatever's below? Does it disturb it in a way that requires a strengthening of the retaining wall on the opposite side? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, as far as excavating the pool goes, that doesn't affect the integrity of the retaining wall because it's retaining the material on our owner side. So it actually would effectively reduce the load, you know, to those adjacent walls. But Doug had a comment in his letter as far as we are kind of blending out some of the fill over the infiltrators on the north end. We're getting within, you know, the taper kind of ends 5 feet from the wall. So he asked us just to assess any impacts to, you know, placing soil, you know, pretty close to the wall. So we'll do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike Smith?
I have nothing to add to what's already been said. I do know that my neighbor, this goes back 20, 25 years, had plans for a pool and then realized that they couldn't go anywhere after they drilled and they found too much rock in his backyard.
Yeah, it's a problem. I'm sure he's aware of it. He's also aware that you can't move without coming back to us. And he needs a permit if there's any rock removal and chipping.
Right.
Sarah, anybody out there?
Caesar, on the permit, I mean, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, but it isn't like a discretionary permit.
No, it is. It has to go where it goes.
Yeah, you just make sure you know, don't think that the building department can say, you know, hey, the blasting's going to bother the neighbors or whatever. You know, it's not discretionary. They're just so you understand that. So
the blasting is quite an involved process, and it's very cost prohibitive.
Yeah, I mean, there are requirements, but Ed can't refuse it because, you know, he thinks it's not a good idea, just so you know that. That's really in your bailiwick. That's why Ed was saying that it is relevant to your site plan approval. If you have concerns about the blasting, other than the technical stuff that, you know, that they have to satisfy, then it should be raised by the planning board.
Presumably in that permit to remove rock, building department and engineering could add conditions on how to do it.
Yes, that's in
Say
Not
that
really.
again. Not really?
The code only gives us no, we're not responsible for designing the blasting. So it's the responsibility of the applicant to meet the requirements of the code and the federal government in the blasting.
It's your judgment whether they do that or
No,
someone
it's
else.
administrative on my end. I can't tell them no.
I see.
If you're concerned about the rock blasting being not acceptable to zero, you got to take it up a site plan.
Well, if you say it's administrative, so if they come in with a blasting plan that does not
It meets all the requirements, I have to issue it.
If it doesn't meet federal requirements, you said you do it administratively. Do you still?
Yeah, then I don't issue it. I don't issue it for that.
Oh, okay.
But I can't say, oh, it looks dangerous because the sky's blue. I can't do that.
Right,
Is there any desire to blast, Troy?
No, we're not blasting.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a small amount to blast for that.
What
Yeah,
did you ask, Doug?
We're not proposing to blast at all.
Oh, okay.
I just asked if they were planning to blast. I mean, there was discussion about it, but they have no reason, no desire to blast them.
So you're gonna excavate mechanically?
Correct. Yep.
Is that something we can include in any future resolution, Mary Ann?
Include what?
No blasting, mechanical removal.
You could make that a condition of this site plan approval that there can't be blasting, yes.
Okay. Keep that in mind. All right, we didn't get to the public.
Caesar, there was just one other question. I wanted to make sure that what we were asking Troy to calculate as to the castle elements was the amount of the square footage, the amount of coverage attributable to the castle elements, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. That even though it's been there whatever number of years, it's still coverage.
And we're talking about this area here. That's called the shed, correct?
Oh, okay. It's one of those turrets.
Right. I'm sorry. I just got rid of it. This is included in our calculation. Actually, we should change that on the survey. The surveyor called it a shed, but it's a really fancy shed, I'd say. Shed doesn't really paint the picture for that. But yes, that's included in the coverage count.
What about the walls?
The walls are as well. Yep, they're 18-inch wide walls that are included. Yeah, so I think we need to include the generator and AC units and the pea gravel area of that upper kind of garden area.
And now keep in mind, the areas you did not include, I mean, we're already overly concerned, not overly concerned, we're already seriously concerned with the amount, the over 50% over. And that's without the areas you just said that are not in there. So
right.
you got some homework to do.
Yep.
All right, Mike, you done?
I am. Thanks.
Mary Ann, you were done. I got to go to the public.
Yeah.
Sarah, anything out there?
Yes, there's a comment in the chat and there is somebody that has their hand raised. Should I read the comment first?
Why don't you let them?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, read it and then let them speak. Whichever one.
No, they're different people.
All right, well then let's take the first one.
Okay, well, the comment in the chat was from Lawrence Levin and his comment.
Okay, go ahead. Do the chat first.
Yep. Lawrence Levin's comment is, please address steps being taken to prevent overflow to the lower properties in case of catastrophic failure of the pool. Also, please address the plan for altered runoff of rainwater. And the person that's raising their hand is Stephen Hardy.
Let's finish with the drainage first. Doug, you want to? Those are. I think we got the drainage. You know, we asked questions on the drainage, and why don't you answer that chat?
We don't have enough information to determine whether it's acceptable or not right now.
but we're not going to let go of that issue.
No,
That
no,
is-
definitely not. No.
That's something that's looked at very carefully, and Doug is our engineer for the village, and we'll be certainly reviewing that to look at your concern and to make sure that your fear doesn't happen as best we can. You never know.
Yeah, they have to maintain or decrease runoff volume and flow for up to the 100-year storm event. So that's the requirement.
Right, the rate of flow off the property cannot be increased over the existing rate of flow off the property, according to DEC rules on stormwater.
Yes, and volume.
Yeah. Okay. The raised hand now, please, Sarah.
Okay.
And Sarah, keep an eye on the chat in case the chat person wants to follow up with the answer. When we gave an answer, he may follow up with an additional chat.
Okay.
Can we have the raised hand?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Steve Hardy, and I live at 2 Palliser Road, adjacent to Lawrence Levin, who just sent a comment in. And I'm with Dr. Dan Neonalto, who is our neighbor to the west, I guess. That's the Karsten tract on the survey there. He'll introduce himself. Dan?
Okay, you have a comment?
Okay, yes. First of all, thank you for your thoughtful consideration of this. The Levins, Hardys, and Neonalto Karstens are, we're not just adjacent to that property, we're downhill from it. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with that neighborhood, but the property that we're talking about at Castle Road sits on the top of what is basically a rock promontory. And if you, I'm glad we have the topo plan up there. You can see reading the topo lines there, how severely the hill drops down to our properties below it.
I presume you're on Palliser.
Yeah, we're on Palliser, yes.
Your backyard is this proposal.
Yes, that's my backyard, and the Levins who just submitted a comment are to the right looking at the plan. But you
can see it on the pic, on the drawing that's up there. You see Karsten and Hardy.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you've hit on many of the main points we were hoping to raise, including the huge amount of overage in terms of allowable coverage for that thing. And really water, which was the last part of the conversation, was our biggest concern. First of all, I think it would be to everybody's advantage. In the application, there's an overhead shot with full foliage. But if you were to look at one as we did earlier in the meeting, I think it was on 10 Hancock, without foliage cover, you can see exactly how close our homes are to this. I'll speak only for our property. As sorry. The drop from the property line at the north here to our property is so steep, and it's mostly rock with no more than an inch or two of soil in some places, that even the deer can't walk up or down. And it's mostly rock. Water cascades down there in major storms and forms a pool in our patio, which is not far from the boundary line. So those are some circumstances I think wouldn't be evident here because we're looking at this in plan rather than vertical elevations. So that's one thought. It's mostly bedrock in my experience.
Excuse me, we did ask for elevation profiles if you were listening. So
yes,
we are going to look at that.
Okay. But by the way, I'd welcome anybody to come and look from our backyards at the hill that runs up to this property. I think that's, I'm just looking at my notes so I don't repeat things. But some of the questions that we do have are, do have to do with where's the water going to go. You saw in the plan that there's a containment area. Curious what the volume is there, whether that's adequate. I presume these are all taken care of by law, whether it's adequate to contain the contents of the pool as well as any runoff. I'm not we're just citizens here, right? So I'm not engineers or architects or anything like that. I don't know where that water goes when it's been containing, because, you know, the sewage lines, if there are any, seem to be up at the elevation of Castle Road rather than down towards the wall. So I'm not sure where that will go. We're not sure, you know, I just wanted to point out that the plan shows about a drop of about 19 vertical feet from the back of the existing home, if I've read my topos right. And from about 315-foot elevation to 296. So that's a drop of 19 feet over what looks to me to be 66 horizontal feet. So that's a ratio of 1 foot of drop for every 3.5 feet of horizontal travel in the northwest direction. So we saw the photo earlier, but I don't think that adequately captures the steepness of the topography in the area. And then the questions that we have as the neighbors, from my master bedroom on the second floor of our house, you can see into the area that we're talking about here. That stone wall is not very high. I'd say it's maybe no more than 2.5, 3 feet high. So it doesn't really screen us from that area. I have no complaints with our neighbors at all. Great. But by the time there's a pool there with what was described as a 5-foot retaining wall, we're going to have a pretty clear view into that area from our second story. And we're wondering, you know, what, you know, noise mitigation as well as visual could be contemplated there, because pools inevitably attract a lot of fun, and with fun comes a lot of noise. So there's a hedge, for instance, between this property and the one to its west. What could be done here? And then finally, the construction schedule in the application is April 15th to July 31st. And especially given the discussion we're having tonight, we're wondering whether that's a realistic you know, estimate of about how long it will take for this, including hammering and so on and so forth. We have experience, all three of us, with the construction that was done at the Boff House, which is 6 Palliser, as referenced earlier. And that took a couple of redos to get the drainage and everything just right. So that's kind of underlying, I think, the concerns of all three of us as neighbors. Dan, do you have anything more you want to add?
Okay, while you're thinking, the applicant is still on. The applicant indicated that the foliage in your direction, he didn't think it was essential, but it appears that with your information that it looks very essential. And I would hope there will be screening on both sides of that pool. And if you recollect, I indicated that we don't like people looking at a 5-foot retaining wall, so that was going to be screened anyway. But the other property line that parallel to Palliser, let's see, what's that? I don't see the direction here. Oh, the east side, which is the Palliser side, should have, you know, some screening up there.
Yeah.
Can we agree to that? Hello?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we would very much like screening.
No, I'm asking the applicant's representative.
Yes, no, that's fine. All that's fine.
The other thing I would just note for you, you know, in practice, you know, the Castle Road property is only maintained to the old castle walls there. Everything beyond that is, you know, basically we maintain to the extent it requires them.
And you have a point there, I'm not sure.
No, I'm an amateur, so I'm just saying that, you know, the coverage ratios, which are already quite high, if they were measured inside those existing stone walls, would even be a higher, you know, coverage, you know, than the property line, and that may not be within your discretion. You have to do.
Well, our board has indicated we're very uncomfortable with the current proposal, and that does not include areas that should have been included. So that is a major concern, and they're going to have to do some homework on that.
Thank you. And my closing point is just simply our issue is water running down the hillsides into our backyard. Thank you.
Water can be a problem. There was the chat room question, and our engineer Doug Hahn is not through with that drainage problem. And when we're finished, it'll be addressed, and you'll be able to take a look at whatever whatever is proposed and whatever we feel comfortable with. And then you can take a look at it, and that we looked at it and judge from what is proposed when the next time he comes in with completing the questions that we all, including you, that we all have asked, and address them for the next meeting.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for taking the time to call in. All right, based on what we heard from the chat and the raised hand, does anybody on the board have an additional question? Dan, Lori,
Not at this time, thank you.
Kevin?
I have a quick question for Doug. Given that there is a lot of rock there, when there are storms right now, is the assumption that only so much water gets absorbed into the ground and the rest runs off? And in that case, does it change that much when a pool is put in?
It depends on the existing coverage and the soils. Yes, it does depend on that. It's based on soil mapping and the site visits and what type of soil is out there. So yeah, it does come into play, yes. And if there is a lot of rock, then currently there's probably a lot of runoff that is existing. So, I mean, it's kind of an opportunity possibly to help mitigate some of it.
I think the applicant should look at that, mitigate some of the existing problems. So
I think, as Doug, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, as Doug mentioned, this could be a means of some mitigation because of the shallow bedrock. The runoff rates are higher compared to, a site that doesn't have shallow bedrock and bedrock at the surface. So essentially we're taking a relatively steep area that has shallow bedrock and potentially shallow soils with high runoff rates. And we're basically putting in a pool that typically, even though the regulations require you to consider it the same as a basketball court, we all know that a pool has a certain amount of freeboard during normal operation of 6 inches or so. So if you get any storm event up to 6 inches, that whole area of the pool is going to contain it. So there's actually kind of built-in mitigation there that you get no credit for as far as the calculations go from the DEC standpoint, but also the fact that we're flattening out part of the area by filling, that also reduces the velocity of runoff that comes off of this property as well. So there are certainly opportunities for that mitigation, which we'll kind of highlight with our next submission.
Okay. All right, I guess we wrapped it up. Does anybody have, Sarah, did the chat room person come back with additional question?
No, there's no additional comments in the chat.
And we finished with the raised hand. One last comment from the board, anybody? Does the applicant have it? I'm not going to attempt to.
Well, let's hear it. I want to hear it. No, that's okay. No, I'm comfortable with whatever. That's Mary Ann did a better job, but
well, I went to high school with a Wojnarowski, and it's going to be Wojnarowski.
No, we heard your comments for sure, and so our next submission will attempt to address all those so that the board can see this in a positive light and refer us off to the zoning board for variance.
Well, I hope you appreciate the seriousness of the coverage. And that needs to be worked on.
For sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks all. Have a good night.
Yep. We're done with 14. Castle. The next one is number 7, 2021-11, 8 West Sunnyside Lane.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Chair, can you hear me and see me?
Not very well, no.
Can't
No.
see you and can hardly hear.
Okay. Hold on.
We got a big purple screen and hardly garbled.
Okay, hold on, please. How about that? Okay, is that better?
That's better.
Okay. Oh, hello, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Tom Haynes.
I'm glad you don't have anything on your TV back there.
Not tonight. My name is Tom Haynes from Haynes Architecture, and I am presenting an application to you tonight on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Haddad, located at 8 West Sunnyside Lane. Tonight we are proposing a screened-in porch, 229 square feet, and it will be located to the right of the existing dwelling. If I may share my screen, I could walk you through very briefly a short presentation, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Well, there's a lot of questions. I don't know if you've seen, this is in the view preservation area, floodplain. You got the aqueduct, I mean, the screen and porch is not in the aqueduct buffer, but the building is. You need to notify the state park aqueduct people. They need notification. You might have used the wrong address.
So I have
silt fences. There's quite a few things you need.
We did receive the letter yesterday from James Bond Engineering, and since then kind of addressed every question on the item, including the landscape architects. I have it saved in a PDF that I can present to you briefly now, which will certainly answer a number of questions. I know it's not a formal submission, but at least if I can make that presentation, I'll show you how we addressed items that were on there that might be in question to you. And just to reiterate, we are proposing to build on an existing patio. There's no net increase to impervious area whatsoever. There is no cut or fill whatsoever. We are not disturbing or will be disturbing any trees or landscaping in the area.
Hold that thought on the trees. If you got a picture of the house from the front, there is a tree that appears to be adjacent to the patio, which will become a screened-in porch.
Is it just me or is anybody else having a hard time understanding him?
Yeah, it's not coming through very clear.
Yeah, you're really unclear.
Okay, if you can, hold on 1 second. I'll address that. Hold on.
You're a little garbled.
Okay, is that anybody?
Much better.
Yes.
Okay.
Better. Can actually hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, apologies for that. We had just recently.
This is not the picture I'm speaking of.
Okay.
Literally shows a tree.
Is it? Well, I'm just on. This is Google Street. So, are you talking about one that I had presented in the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so
it's right at the corner of the house where the house meets the screened-in porch on the front. Yeah, right there. You see the picture on the middle?
This,
Middle left?
this,
Yes,
where the
that's,
okay, that's much far forward of where we're proposing the porch. So our screened porch is going to be taking
I
place
can
on
see.
top of this. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah, so it would be here in this area of this
So
existing
you want
porch
to,
on
you
the
may
bottom
want to
left.
show some root protection on the plans for that tree.
Okay, again, we are not, there's no disturbance to the
I know, but
perimeter of this.
during the erection of the screened-in porch, if people stomping on the roots, trees don't like their roots stomped on, so it's like stepping on your feet.
Okay, yeah, that's
So you
not a,
just
not a,
rope off the root zone.
okay.
Does anybody have, Dan, you have any questions on this?
Not at this time.
Laurie? Oh, yes, you do have a question. I think I'll ask it for you. AC relocation, where is that going to go?
There is no relocation of air conditioning units.
It's going to stay where it is, right in front of the screened-in porch?
Yep, absolutely. So again, just to reiterate, we're going to remove this existing wall that wraps two sides of the perimeter of the patio. The framing will be built directly on the perimeter of this patio where there once was. So if I can show you this photo here, this is the existing rear elevation on the top left, existing front elevation on the bottom left. On the bottom left elevation, which is the front, you could see here was an existing screened porch or covered porch as part of the existing residence. We are reverting back to this aesthetically a little bit different to tie a little bit more architecturally into what is there now of the Center Hall Colonial with similar details. But again, we are literally rebuilding this this porch back on top of that existing perimeter that was once in place. So there's no site disturbance whatsoever. Even, construction stabilization pads aren't necessary. We're going to pull into the existing roundabout driveway, unload in the driveway. There will be no machinery or trucks or anything running through. As part of our revised plan for today, I did show in here, just to add a little bit of further protection, we can screen around the area of where the construction is going to take place with a silt fence, just in case, but it's not fully necessary. We're not excavating. We did show on the left side here the location of the old Croton Aqueduct with the 30-foot setback buffer here, which you could see this dashed line coming down. We're completely on the other side.
Yes.
The bottom right side here is shaded. That shows our floodplain elevations there as taken. We have all our views from the front street, which was requested by the engineer, which we've since added to sheet 8 here, which show a key and locations in across the street. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Right here, we have every view keyed in from the street here. And as we proceed down, the view of the fronts from the street here, I even included, which you can see in the distance, the way that the screened patio porch would look like attached to the dwelling from the street. You can also see it further down the street keyed in, which would be right here. As mentioned, we've addressed every comment on here in this revised PDF plan. It was a bit of a scramble because we did just receive the comments yesterday. So in effect, we're doing everything we can to sort of, hopefully get a conditional approval on this. As mentioned, I don't see that this is any, significant. There's really no disturbance to the site. And I think that it's sort of a de minimis request here to rebuild the porch back where it was. The only, there was one question about, the notification to the New York State Parks for abutting the old Croton Aqueduct is really the only question that I had, which was number 16 on the list. I'm not sure if that's a formality or not, since we're way out of the buffer. So I did want to ask that question. I'm sure you guys have some questions for me, and like I said, I'm happy to answer.
I see another little handwritten note. What about lighting?
So the lighting, there is not going to be any lighting except for inside, which would be no different than if it was inside the dwelling. We don't have any perimeter exterior lighting. It's just a screened porch. The construction materials of the porch itself is going to consist primarily of AZAC and screen. So we don't have anything at this moment suggested in that area. So I don't believe that we are going to have any effect on any neighboring properties or anything. If we were to propose any lighting for the project, it would be facing rear, which this bottom elevation here is the rear view, potentially, you know, somewhere back in this rear yard, but at the moment we don't have any new lighting.
And is going to the ZBA because
this is, well, we need architectural review board approval, so this should only be going to the planning board for approval.
there's no variances involved?
There's no variances requested in this. And as part of the engineer's comments, we had made some revisions here. Everything is clouded. We're showing the 100-year floodplain, the 50-year floodplain. We have some additional notes they added. Again, down at the bottom shows all our perspective angle views with the wire diagram view of the structure, the aqueduct along the left. So I think, you know, we're pretty in line with all of these requests, and I don't think that there's really anything that's, you know, should stand in our way, in my opinion. Again, you know, we're here in front of you asking your permission, but again, I think that this is a pretty straightforward project, seeing that there's no excavation or anything, and you know, with that, or we would kindly request, you know, acceptance to move ahead to the architectural review board.
Doug, you got all these engineering things resolved or at least addressed?
Well, I mean, he'll have to do the water course for being within 100 feet of the floodplain.
I'm sorry.
I don't see any issues really with it. I mean,
Needs a permit.
I mean, a lot of these are relatively minor. I mean, I doubt we have a resolution ready, right?
No, we don't.
Doug, are you
Mary Ann-
saying he needs a wetlands permit?
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet.
For being within 100 feet of the floodplain, yeah.
Okay. And that submission wasn't made, right?
No, not yet. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's too many questions, Caesar.
You know, I think if we look through this list, you know, I'd be happy, and I'm sure we don't have the time
Yeah,
tonight. I'd be happy to go
that's
through.
not how it works here.
Understood, but the
Okay.
the
You have
list.
anything else to talk about? I apologize, but these are volunteers and they've been working pretty hard.
It's getting late.
Understood. I just wanted to point out that it is a pretty standard boilerplate list. I think that that's very standard. Almost all of them are just notes.
We haven't had time to review it.
Yeah, it just came in and
Yeah, so Mr. Hayes, just so you know, on that wetlands permit, you have to check the code. There are submissions you have to make on that. I mean, it's probably not an issue, but without that, the board, because means the board has to grant a wetlands permit and they don't have the application, so they can't do it yet.
all right. And I mean, I don't think, you know, the view preservation has to be addressed. Probably not an issue, but you still need to address it in a definitive way.
Differently than what I'm showing today.
Well, sight lines, I guess, that no one, that you're not blocking the view from the aqueduct. I mean, it appears off the top of my head that any view obstruction, I mean, the house is already in the way, you're just putting it behind the house. But one should document that because it is in the view preservation district. And that we don't want to just gloss over it and say, oh yeah, that's not a problem, and not have a picture or a sight line that's showing that it's not a problem.
I don't think they've had time to really review it. I mean, it looks to me like you did show it, but
Well, we did show it, but you know,
Yeah.
just to that point, I mean, it's impossible to construct the view because it's on the right side of the house. So that's-
All right, well, you're coming back, so we'll take a look at it when you come back. And by that time, you'll have your proper notification to the state.
Okay.
State Parks was the Conic region. Any comment, Dan?
I have none, Caesar. Thank you.
Lori?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Kevin?
Oh, thank you.
Mike?
None other than to say that it's, the substance of the application is fine to enclose the porch. It's some other things that just have to be taken care of, and I'm sure they'll get taken care of by the next meeting.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This used to be Congressman Piser's house.
I'm not sure. The owner could answer. They are on. I'm not sure if they're aware or not.
Okay, Sarah, any comment, chat or hand raised?
There are no comments in the chat and nobody has their hand raised. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. The homeowner has his hand raised.
I have confirmation that it was, or that, yes, that the property is.
All right, there's a hand raised. That may be the owner, and I don't know. Go ahead. Can we listen to the
Yeah,
hand?
no, it is the owner. Hi, everybody. This is the former house of the Piser family, Mr. Piser. So I just wanted to confirm that. We are in touch with the Piser family, the younger son, Peter, and look forward to continuing this house's great tradition.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we're done.
Okay,
right,
thank you all.
Thank you. And there's a rock in Scenic Hudson Park dedicated to the congressman down by one of the ball fields. We're finished with that. What's next?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the last one, 2021-10, 28 Cedar Lawn Road. I say 21, it's 28, 28 Cedar Lawn Road.
Good evening.
You had a long wait.
Yeah, that's okay. I was.
We put you last because we understood.
I understand. I know.
You thought the meeting started at 8, and we didn't want to put you first at 7.
And I apologize for that.
All right, but you're on now.
So again, thank you, Caesar. This is an application for the Norquist residence, 28 Cedar Lawn Road. Matthew Behrens, architect representing the applicant. This is for a recently constructed front step and landing and a walkway. Let me see if I can blow this up slightly. This application was actually in front of the board back in 2015. At that time, we were proposing a new front porch, which was approved. We required some coverage variances, which were subsequently approved by the zoning board. And then fast forward now to about 2020, and the owners never built the porch. And the front steps continued to deteriorate. They needed to be replaced. They went ahead and reached out to a contractor to have them replaced. Unfortunately, the contractor said, "Oh, you don't need a permit to do that." They figured, "Oh, well, we already got approvals, so let's just go ahead and do it." Again, an unfortunate misunderstanding, but it is a much smaller construction than what was previously approved, and we are now coming in for a post-construction approval. Still, as noted above, still requires coverage variances, mostly due to the fact that the existing coverage is already exceeded. I will blow this up. As you can see here, the allowable coverage is 2,212 square feet. The principal coverage, the principal building coverage already exceeds that amount. Plus, there are some impervious surface coverages. There's a patio in the back, a couple of walkways that are existing. Give or take about 1,000 square feet over the allowable. We are only adding about 243 square feet, however. But it does, the numbers are a little bit staggering, but most of that is due to the fact that it's existing coverage. So again, this is an unfortunate misunderstanding on the part of the homeowner. A lot of these coverage overages are predate the current owners, but they are what they are, and looking for referral to the zoning board to get the current the proposed and, well, current overages approved through the zoning board.
Do you have a number for the overage? What percentage is over?
The proposed add is 7% over what's existing, Caesar. So I'm not quite sure how that translates. So we can talk through these numbers. Let me know how you want me to do the calculations. I've got a calculator here.
Well, the cover, it's 59.4 over allowable coverage.
Currently.
No, with the
All
addition,
in.
59.4, but it's 2.5 greater than existing.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
I think you had a negative value in there. You got to just check it.
Okay.
Over here, Doug, the minus 158, that was for the existing stair and landing that were taken out.
That's for proposal. I don't have to take a look at it, but
Okay.
it's in comment 1 of my letter.
Okay.
All right, now, correct me if I'm wrong. It appears that this area was built up prior to the village enacting a coverage code.
Previously, yes.
Okay. Any comment, Dan?
No comment there, Caesar.
Kevin? I'm sorry, Laurie?
The document that you're showing right now, is that in the submission that was sent to the planning department?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't seem to find it.
And there's also this document here, which highlights the existing versus, hopefully you can still see that on my screen. So this highlights what's existing and what is, and I'm calling it proposed, even though it is already there. I'm calling it new, actually. So it's basically this existing previous stair and landing and walkway.
That was the previous existing, and this is the now existing.
Correct. Thank you.
Laurie?
I see it now. I pulled it up on my screen too. Thank you. I mean, it's 7 per, not, if you take away the already existing overage, you're saying that it's an additional 7%.
Yes.
I think Mary Ann indicated 2.5.
I thought it was 2. I thought on Doug's memo, it says 2.5 greater than existing. Oh, but I know what than existing, but you have to calculate in, I guess, what the old porch that was there. So maybe that's how it comes to 7%.
All right, Laurie? Laurie, you okay? You done?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Kevin?
No comments or questions. Thanks.
Mike Smith?
Now I'm totally confused.
Good. Get us all.
So just tell me, I mean, there was a stair, there was a landing and a pathway before, so.
Yes.
So what is it that's, how much greater than what was already there is now been currently built?
I will give you that in 1 second. The existing is 158 square feet, was 158 square feet.
Right.
And the proposed is a total of 243 square feet.
Okay.
So the add is a total of 85 square feet. Right.
Right, and that's what Doug is saying is 2.5%?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
My 7% was based on the total add.
Right.
Subtracting the removal. Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Mike?
Yep.
All right, I have this Caesar. I have no further questions. Sarah, anything from the public?
Nobody's raising their hand, and there are no comments in the chat.
Mary Ann, do you have anything? You have a resolution possibly?
Yeah, I do. Whereas in February 2021, Lauren Norquist applied for site development plan approval to legalize a newly constructed front landing steps and walkway at her house at 28 Cedar Lawn Road. And the construction exceeds permitted coverage and therefore requires a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated March 1st listed several minor issues. Whereas the planning board held a public hearing on the application on March 3rd. It's a type 2 action under SECR. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board grants site development plan approval for the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Norquist Residence. The sheets are detailed, prepared by Matthew Barron's architect, subject to 1, receiving a coverage variance from the ZBA, and 2, complying with the items listed in the Han memorandum dated March 1st, 2021.
Okay, anybody have any comments on that? We'll take a vote. Dan
I approve the
and
motion
signature.
and
Signature.
Sarah to sign plan.
Lori,
Approve, and Sarah has permission to sign on my behalf.
Kevin,
I approve and authorize Sarah.
Mike,
I approve and I authorize Sarah.
Caesar approves and authorize Sarah to sign for me. Okay, I think we're done. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
explanations, and have a good evening.
Have a great night. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I think we were all done. I think it was a long night. Why? 9:30.
You're not kidding.
Whoever had the over won.
It was me, of course. I told Ed, I'm always last, so that's okay.
We didn't bet.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
All right, everybody, thank you again for your volunteer service. Sarah, thanks for handling all the logistics.
Thanks.
Night, Caesar.
Good night, everyone.
Good everyone.
And Mike, thanks for Mike DeFalco. Thank you very much for listening in. Welcome. I hope you weren't too bored just sitting there not participating. And by the way, everybody, Mike DeFalco took pictures of 10 Hancock on his own. And Mike, did they show anything different than the applicant did?
No, I think the thing that I noticed was it was in line with all the other fences. Was the one big difference. It's in really bad shape, and that's the only thing about a metal fence, especially with all the trees. You have one crack in that, and it has a huge bent metal bar in it. It's a pain to replace. And
yeah, well, yeah, our landscape architect Susan Nolan indicate the skip laurels will grow through the fence and masquerade the fence a bit better than the neighbor's fence, which is just boards. It gets that tunnel effect. So
yeah, it is kind of a hodgepodge of fences. I think even 2 houses down, there's deer fence not in line. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, skip laurel. I have skip laurel on my property for the same purpose. So
okay. All right, I just wanted to get you involved a little bit since you sat there.
Thanks. Of course.
All right, thanks a lot for doing that, and we'll see you another time when there's an alternate available. You might be the one. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good one, and we'll see you next. Thank you very much.